Hello, and welcome to Doctor Who 50 Years Ago, the show that looks back to the episode that aired in 1967 and looks at the differences between then and now. This week, episode 3 of The Evil of the Daleks. Testing, 1, 2, 3. I am Ben.
I am Luke.
And I'm Nick.
And here we are, and here we go into the news from 1967, the Six-Day War segment. On Sunday, the 28th of May, Israel's cabinet holds a meeting and votes to wait 2 to 3 weeks to allow the international community to reopen the Straits of Tehran, which take your pick, which Egypt closed to provoke Israel towards war. It doesn't help this podcast, but war is coming, I assure you.
To make a point here, I do wonder if nowadays the Israeli government would be quite so passive and would probably be more inclined to take things into their own hand.
Things
Perhaps.
might change next week.
Yeah.
Next week or the week after. But
It might well be the experience of this war.
that's foreshadowing to happen.
Yeah.
Ho-hum. Yeah, it could also be a lie. And that rather than they decided to wait, they decided to get ready to launch any surprise attack, which kind of helps. Nobody expects the Israeli Inquisition.
Don't.
Yeah, I was wondering whether I'd be allowed to get away with that one. But
Oh, you are.
okay, cool. Great. Whilst all this six-day war prelude's been going on Tuesday the 30th of May, a Lieutenant Colonel, or Lieutenant Colonel, take your pick, of the Nigerian Army proclaims eastern Nigeria to be the Republic of Biafra, and the country descends into a bloody civil war, the likes of which Africa has never seen before.
There wasn't a civil war in Africa before this?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what
Rob,
I was thinking. Was that sarcasm?
It's a larger one. This one is seen to be one of the most bloody until, oh god.
Well,
Nineties.
to take your pick, sadly, Somalia. God,
Yeah, that's
Somalia doesn't even exist as a country really now.
ongoing.
Yeah, trouble in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Wasn't there a crisis in Congo before this?
By the Belgian king.
Yeah, late 50s, Belgians in the Congo.
Yeah. So this begins a trend that we've seen from 50 years ago to now, and probably somewhere into the future, of conflict in African countries, because after the Second World War, all the colonial powers are like, well, we've run out of money, we're just going to get out of Africa. And we left them no civil society or money or anything. And they proceeded to go bankrupt and then start killing each other, because that's what happens when you leave a vacuum.
Yeah, military dictatorships, because, let's face it, they're so used to having the military underhand, they decide, to play that game, we'll take over the country. No, we'll take over the country. Mass bloodshed ensues. It's rather shameful in Africa. And finally, on Friday the 2nd of June, American fighter jets attacked the North Vietnamese port of Cam Pha, and cannon fire struck a Soviet diesel ship, killing a merchant sailor. It's tense times for America, and rivals getting caught in the crossfire during their Vietnam War escapades doesn't help.
Yeah, that's a poor merchant sailor. One of the victims of the Cold War. That probably killed quite a number of hundreds of thousands.
Thankfully, not an escalation of anything.
Yeah, it's one of those. It was a mistake to try and escalate it further. Wouldn't have been particularly good for America or the Russians.
I mean, they were more than happy to escalate the Vietnam War with the Gulf of whichever one it was. In the early
Gulf of Tonkin. Oh, yeah, that's because basically, I'm not going to say it was a false flag attack, although I think it was actually, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, or at least the pretext was really trumped up. So, well, the reason was they wanted to go to war, so that they just got their casus belli out. That was it. Luke, for you who doesn't know Latin, cause for war.
Excuse me, of course I know Latin.
Sure thing.
Look, I could say some Latin words.
I'm sure you. You knew what Casus Belli was?
Of course I do. It means beautiful cat.
Right.
Oh, said Frustra. Right. Said Frustra. But in vain. Yeah. Mass military manoeuvres in 1967. It's a very nasty place every now and then. That is the news. And now we shall get into episode 3 of The Evil of the Daleks. As we move into the middle section of this story, we could possibly argue it starts to drag a bit.
It's not that it drags, it's that we're not looking at anything, and this is a very visual part of the story, and even in the telesnaps they keep defaulting to the same picture of Kemmel. There aren't bad ideas in this story, there are just ideas that we can't enjoy anymore, sadly.
Yes, the missing episodes tragedy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This one is a little bit more visual, especially towards the end. It's just a shame someone on the BBC thought, right, you know those incredibly popular Dalek things that were basically the only reason the show ever carried on. Let's just junk them first. Let's just junk the Dalek ones. You think they might keep them to the end, at least? Wouldn't you think they might have kept the Dalek ones at least?
They did keep a Dalek one, Nick. The Space Museum.
You've got me there.
Yeah, but...
Yeah, no, I think this is the first time where I've truly felt that not having the pictures have really weakened it for me. I've never been as much of a fan of watching the recons, but I can normally at least just about get behind it. I don't feel like I'd enjoy it that much more with the visuals, but this one I feel like I would enjoy it so much more with the visuals.
Yes.
You can sense it's good, but it's so visual you can't really.
Yeah, okay. We can therefore conclude that this episode is audibly challenged.
Indeed.
Let's get into the episode. The Doctor, Waterfield and Maxtable attempts to find the kidnapped Jamie, who has been taken to a barn by a man named Toby for a man called Terrell, who has emotional issues and is plagued by radiophonic sounds. The Doctor eventually discovers Jamie, and that plotline is seemingly resolved, except for Terrell's split personality disorder. Anyway, we've bigger troubles. Loose cannon have been given a camera, some actors, and some Daleks, as Victoria is moved about the house. It's very jarring for loose cannon construction, but as we say, we need visuals for this.
It's quite telling that there is a long silence in this episode where it's obvious that loose cannon had nothing to play with. And obviously that's fine when you're making TV and you don't expect it to be burnt, but it just goes to show how visual this thing is. And you know what? For a 60s TV show, which was usually people in a house talking at each other because it was just theatre plus done on a shoestring budget, we have to applaud it in that way. It shows how all out they're going for this sort of thing. You really need visuals.
Yes.
And in 60s TV, you just sort of don't usually. Usually. I am generalising horribly, but I'm pointing that out.
Yeah, okay, sure.
The Daleks in this say, "Do not be afraid, you are not to be exterminated." That's fun. The only thing that the Daleks fear is their own death. They don't fear torture or anything else. And it shows how base these creatures are. they are all about survival, not about any sort of fulfillment or enjoyment of life. That they just want to not die, and it makes them seem even more primitive that way, and almost scarier. So impossible to reckon with. It doesn't want anything; it just wants not to die, and for you to.
Yeah, survive, conquer, destroy. Reducing evil quite simply to its simplest form, really. The direct opposite opposing view to life, death. Yeah. And bringers of death.
Yeah.
We,
this carries on that the Daleks are so well written in this.
Despite the Doctor forewarning Jamie about the Daleks, Jamie feels the Doctor's playing him for a fool, which he is. Maxtable, meanwhile, is helping with the test by bringing the, quote, dumb, undeveloped Kemal, a definitely not racist portrayal of a Turkish strongman. He proves his aptitude as being a foe for Jamie, who is to rescue Victoria from the clutches of the Daleks. That is the test. Whilst his reactions are to be recorded by Dalek equipment. All this is told in 10 long minutes, accompanied by piano music, which makes for a somewhat sleepy telling of this story. Again, 7 parts. This story must be told slowly in a relaxed pace.
Yeah. I was thinking... this wouldn't be done now. This is 50 years ago, having this very much cardboard cutout. A much worse version of Toberman. You know, at least Toberman does good stuff in the end. I'm assuming this Turkish guy doesn't. Does he have a Toberman moment where?
This is the bit.
Well, I don't know. It's just, if this were done now, I think they would show the racism of the time. So he might call him dumb, undeveloped, but then he wouldn't be shown to be stupid. Where he is here, he's quite clearly thick, you know, or I don't know. There's something wrong with him because he doesn't talk. You know, he's just some big muscle man.
The complex context of race within Doctor Who in the 60s.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a conscious decision. It's just that they were racist back then. That's
Whittaker embedding in the Victorian values for...
Yeah. And another thing I was going to say is it's really quite a nice touch here that the Doctor manipulates Jamie into doing his bidding. So, again, we've developed Jamie's character, and it doesn't feel out of place now because of episode 2 that Jamie is willing to say, what are you doing? I don't want to do what you want me to do, Doctor. I'm my own man, etc. That doesn't feel like it's come out of nowhere now.
To the point where next episode... To the point where next episode the Doctor's going to take an entire back seat.
And also it's the nice touch of, again, Troughton pretends to be all silly and clownish, but here he's being very manipulative and clever.
Sharing a smile with Waterfield eventually, it makes him almost look like downright evil, working with the Daleks.
But what's really interesting is how Whittaker has grown the character. Or at least he's allowed the character to be meddled with, because in Power of the Daleks he's sort of terrifying in how absent he is, and he seems like he would just betray you at the drop of a hat if that served him. Whereas here, it seems much more like he doesn't want to, but he knows that he has to. And he's much more friendly and almost... He's not comical about it, but we trust him more.
Yeah,
and that's what was missing in Power.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah. Now we've come a whole season, well, nearly the whole season with Troughton being in it, and we trust him now.
And it's through this season that we establish said character and the creation of the show and development of the show up to the present day. There we go. This Doctor has learnt that the Daleks have brought 3 dormant Daleks, which are to be given the human factor following the test to make them all powerful, something that displeases everybody involved except the Daleks. Jamie and Terrell meet again and bitch with each other. I'm more than happy to include that swear. Terrell continues to have his radiophonic attacks. Jamie learns that Molly thinks the house is haunted, another exposition, before the Doctor makes Jamie begin the test by manipulating him like a pro. And here is great acting between the two friends having quite the fight. It's the one thing that doesn't need the visuals because the strength of the actors' performances is easily recognisable in the audio, I feel.
Mm. And wouldn't you say this is the first time at least Troughton's had a big argument with a companion?
It's the first time I remember this Doctor being angry.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's already gone up a notch with episode 2 because he's really fearful and angry that the Daleks are in Victorian England. It raises the stakes, and this is an escalation of this in that a wedge is seemingly being driven between these two friends, but in reality there are more sinister forces at play.
Because unlike Hartnell, who could get quite crotchety with his companions, Troughton generally doesn't lose his cool. He might be shouted at by his companions, but he never loses his cool normally. So the fact that he is getting quite, that he gets angry, it's telling the audience that this is a big deal.
Yes.
It really sells the fear factor of the Daleks again.
One of the bits I like about this scene is when he says to Jamie, "You need to brush up on your history." Which is such an odd thing to say to him, because he starts recounting Jamie's future, and so it sort of means that Jamie should know about all of history, really, including things before and after him, and probably of every planet ever.
Well, I think it's a, isn't it? Also has the practical effect of later on in time when Jamie just seems to know about stuff. It's like, oh, he's read it in a book, so even though he's from 1745, he knows that World War One and World War Two were things.
Yeah. I also think it might be served in that scene alone to start the aggravation of Jamie, because the Doctor's lecturing him, and it's meant to make him all bolshy and independent, like every Scottish person is or isn't, depending on your point of view.
The Doctor here, by giving him that lecture, is sort of becoming Hartnellian by taking sort of on that role of that teacher, grandfatherly figure. And it's interesting to see the companion completely reject that. It's as though the youth of today can't really work with one of those Hartnell figures. Sort of a very subtle, but I feel a certain banishment of that sort of Doctor, which is a shame.
I mean, yes, possibly. I see what you're getting at.
It certainly doesn't come across as being very grandfatherly.
Well, sort of like lecturally above him, whereas in the Macra Terror there was that one bit where the Doctor didn't seem to... He was shocked that he was to be the one who would become the supervisor. He was very much down with the kids. Whereas here, where he tries to not be down with the kids, it completely aggravates Jamie. I mean, I'm not saying it's a massive moment, but I am saying that it is indicative of something.
Sure, okay. Toby and Terrell have a workers' dispute about Terrell's split personality disorder, which he promptly has a bout of, and is knocked out, with Toby gaining the keys to the house. At night, Jamie is sneaking about in the effort to rescue Victoria, using Molly to gain the plans of the house and to be able to move about. The Doctor is given a task to make up the human factor from Jamie's test, which has been relayed to us about 4 times now. Toby has made it to the house in order to steal some things, but the Daleks get him, so that's the end of that. The distraction forces Jamie to get a move on and avoid some traps before reaching Kemmel. Fight! Next episode. Okay.
Shame we didn't have the visuals for that.
Toby and Terrell aren't really part of this episode. That's very highlighted here. He comes in, he's gone now. He doesn't really have a point in all of
He
this.
exists to create a cliffhanger for episode 2.
There are tiny subplots which are then resolved to progress the narrative. Here's a character, this is what he does, this is how he gets involved in the narrative. The narrative progresses because of his or her actions, which are usually them dying.
Yeah. Power of the Daleks didn't have that sort of... It's not quite filler, but it's boring. Maybe if we could see it, it's a really tense scene, but he still doesn't really need to be there in all of this.
No, and again, it's probably just to shore up this third episode to make it reach the 25-minute marker in order to kick Jamie to where Kemmel is, in order to start the action sequences of episode 4, and so on and so forth.
Certainly, it is significant that there is actually quite a lot of action in this compared to most 60s Doctor Who, which is just talking in rooms, you know.
Yeah.
Which is, again, why it's so much harder to watch.
Because of the visual lacks, yeah.
But it does signify, it really is very much a finale, which not necessarily every final serial to a season up to this point really was. Like, the Reign of Terror, does that have a finale feeling to it?
No.
No, I didn't think so. The Meddling Monk one, does that have a finale feeling to it?
It does, because you're meeting someone from the Doctor's home planet.
But it's very minor.
I mean, it is quite slow, isn't it? I've not seen it. That's just what I've heard.
Well, it's a pseudo-historical, so it's doing something interesting with the format.
Yeah. And then the War Machines. Actually, that's fairly actiony.
Yeah, but it's not portrayed as a sort of season finale. Everything hinges on everything in this story, like Evil.
Yeah, this is the first time you get truly what feels like a season finale.
RTD and Moffat do this sort of thing nowadays, where everything is at stake. And the good thing about Doctor Who, well, old Doctor Who, is that it only did that everything's at stake finale like 4 or 5 times.
Over 26 years, so...
Yeah. When you see the horde of Daleks for the third time in Journey's End, it does lose its sting. And it's sort of representative of the fact that we are used to expecting that massive finale. The show doesn't go on all year, let's leave it with a bang. Perfectly understandable.
Well, that's now standard in every TV show that's a drama or anything like that, or fictional at least. You have to end it with a big finale, don't you? Even the most kind of ones that are just bog standard boring dramas, or like crime dramas, feel like, we have to have a big finale for the final case of the season. For whatever reason, that's come about. So it's, I guess, for advertising purposes, isn't it, to boost ratings?
Yeah.
Well, not just that. Since it isn't on all year, you have to look like it's building to something. We're used to expect something a bit more major nowadays, rather than the 60s where things could be a bit more slow-paced. Everything it moves at such a breakneck pace here. If you want to ramp up the tension, you have to ramp up the stakes to whatever you can find.
I guess just, okay, in the 60s, Doctor Who was on 11 months of the year, but by the 80s, it was only on 3-4 months of the year, and even then, they didn't really ever have what felt truly like season finales. Earthshock is the penultimate serial, which makes no sense. It really should have ended on Earthshock. Time Flight is just this weird abomination.
Same with Caves of Androzani.
Yeah, Caves of Androzani, that should be the finale. Oh no, but they tack on the Twin Dilemma again as a strange abomination, which is quite fun to watch though. Or I guess even season 22, you've got the 2 Doctors. Again, you'd think that'd be the finale because they got another Doctor back. But okay, and at least in this case, you get revelation of the Daleks, which makes a bit more sense. But still, that feels less finale-like.
I think they were having difficulties in evolving the storytelling processes. They're having difficulties evolving the storytelling processes in the 80s, whereas the development towards bigger story arcs and therefore more explosive finales happen. You see it with the end of the TV movie, at the very least.
So was it the 90s, Luke, where this sort of... Was it like Buffy? Was that it? Seeing as I know that RCD was heavily inspired by Buffy.
Well, the thing is that once you started to get digital editing, that's when everything became much more fast-paced. And so, I mean, it is sort of with Buffy, but at the same time, if you're going to be building up a story over 13 weeks because you have the idea that there's no tension in a 45-minute story, obviously you have to end it with this massive final battle because it's spanned the last 3 months. I mean, Buffy ends pretty climactically.
It's the adaptation and the evolution of storytelling between, as seen with the Doctor Who episodes 50 years ago and now. Thank you very much for watching. You can find us on Blogspot, which redirects to iTunes. Leave positive comments there, it helps. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube, where you can like, comment and subscribe, and Google Plus if you dare. We shall be back next week to watch episode 4 of Jamie Who in the Haunted House, or The Evil of the Daleks, take your pick. Until then, I have been Ben.
I've been Luke.
And I've been Nick.
Thank you, and goodbye.